Another broadcast of You Already Know. This is our 4th or 5th episode in the series, and today the topic that came to me was peace. And I think that I've been approximating that from different angles, I guess, in all my work. Because what else are we looking for? Oh, I hope you're out there. Oh, thanks. Okay, how are you guys doing today? So we're talking about peace, and let's see what angle does, from where'st do we approach it today? I'm feeling vision, how you see things. Oh God, okay. Hey, good morning. So you right. Thank you. So what I've learned in the last couple years out in the lab has been about balance. So my nature, for one reason or another, had been to be a little on the extreme side. So it's like, if you're doing it, if I was playing with a concept such as language or discipline or open-heartedness, I was taking it to the whole other end, the far end of the spectrum, where it was all that. You can't think at all. Language is useless. And yet there's this spot in the middle way that I've been interested in, that's been developing for me. And it's so fun. Oh my God, it's so fun. And it looks like allowing that things are both limitless and limited simultaneously. So I've been talking a lot about paradoxes recently, and apparently doing the hand jive. You know what that is. And so peace, similarly, is on that Venn diagram territory, where you accept what is without agreeing to it in perpetuity. Which means just because you're accepting something right now doesn't mean you're saying cool, let's keep this, or that was great, that felt really good, we should keep doing that, you guys should continue that way. It's not that. It's saying yes, this is what it is, which allows for you then to take it somewhere else. And so particularly what I'm interested in right now is living out questions and ambiguity. So our minds are so funny. They're so funny. If you haven't really paid attention to your thinking from an objective standpoint, meaning sit back, pretend you have kind of a setup like I have right now. You sit on your couch and watch your mind do its little dance. It's crazy. And you're thinking, it feels like your thinking is probably crazy too, if you're on my wavelength. And by crazy, I mean it goes all over. And my thinking isn't like this anymore, thank God, through practice. But before I had dealt with the underlying feelings and addressed sort of the overarching patterns, thinking is so crazy. You will do wild things. And one of the wild things you want to do is make things this or that. This is a good person, this is a bad person. This is a good thing, this is a bad thing. This is, I know or I don't know. Oh my God. Sure. It can be helpful to average things and come up with good or bad. But it's also really important to recognize that classification, that determination, is not complete. And by that, I mean somebody who has been really, one of my greatest teachers last year was somebody I really didn't like. And our brains put everything in categories to make sense of life. Yes. And so, okay, before I get back to that, which is to say, that bad person was good for me ultimately, and that it helped me greater hold on to my sense of self and my reality and step into a greater level of assertiveness. So what was bad was good. And yet it is helpful to know momentarily, does this feel good or not feel good? And when I was talking about being a little extreme on the spectrums earlier, where it's everything's good, it is helpful to let like to allow the categories. Like I'd come to see that things can't be known, things can't be categorized, and yet it is helpful. So the content I published yesterday was called You Do Create Your Own Reality. And in it, there was a slide that referenced more nuanced material at the end. And so the more nuanced material was basically like, and this is you know, this is kind of tough to hold in your head, but I'm gonna try to put it on paper. So, be with me so far. So what I was saying is like, here's an example of somebody that was bad, but that was ultimately good for me. So I'm gonna put, you know, kind of a angry face. So like this is that. And at the same time of them being bad for, oh, I forgot to write backwards, bad for me, they were also ultimately good for me. So on one level, something is neither good or bad, in that it kind of depends where it is and how you use it. So it's like bad and good at the same time. So that's one level. That's like a higher perspective. That's helpful to have. It's also helpful to have a perspective closer to the ground, which helps you see that even though it's both bad and good, if you could make a choice out of pain, why don't you give it a go? Which means on the ground, it can also be, even though it's that, at the bottom, it's also bad or good on the ground, which means like, I might know, Borg, that means or. And this was where I had to learn. This is where I was extreme on the spectrum, because I was aware of this. So whatever was happening on the ground, I was like, cool, let's roll with it, because it's good. It's good for me ultimately. Feels bad now, but it's good for me ultimately. And that's why I come out here and summarize things, because it's like, look, I don't know what's right for you. I trust you to find what's right for you. In fact, I'm hopeful and intentional to inspire you to be yourself, to be on your own path. And when I'm giving you my like findings, part of that is like, look, I went far. Here's what I saw. You might want to cut it here, but ultimately it's most important you do your own research, come to your own conclusions. Like, but some people, you know, I'm just laying it out. And sometimes it's helpful to see, you know, just, I recognize that I lean on voices outside of myself to help me process and place my experience. And so that's the conversation I'm contributing to. Anyhow, so I'm saying on one level, things are both bad and good, or neither. And so if you've been in my content before, you might have heard me tell the story of the Zen farmer. Very briefly, there's a farmer, his horse runs away, his neighbor's like, oh shucks, that sucks. And the farmer said, oh, we'll see. And then the horse comes back and he brings with him wild horses. So now the farmer has more horses. And his neighbor's like, oh buddy, you're so lucky. And the farmer said, we'll see. One of the new wild horses kicks his son and injures him. Neighbor says, shucks. Farmer says, we'll see. There's a draft. The son doesn't go to war, you know, so on and so forth. So at any given time, you really don't know if something is bad or good, and seemingly it's neither. I think it's, God, I don't know. Music is an area where I'm still growing, but there's some quote I've posted before that I liked, and I don't even know it in its original or home context, but it was kind of like, it's a note in itself isn't bad or good, it's the next one, you know, like that places it. So we've got this idea that things are both bad and good simultaneously. And then yet on the ground, they are bad or good, meaning like allowing yourself to recognize, does this feel good to me? Is this right for me? I wanted so badly for life to be because of suffering and pain. And sure, you can get to higher levels. You can get to things through pain, transmuting pain. In fact, seemingly, you can't bypass it. But at the same time, man, think of the things that you're really good at. They're probably somewhat effortless. Like, there are elements of our experience that are so natural and so easy, and as such, we're not, you know, mentally analyzing them the same way, so they don't go in our logs, our little data books that say, like, this is how it is, because you're not noting it if it's working. Like, you don't pay attention to the stuff that works. You're doing stuff beyond it. And that's one of the hacks whenever you want to transition a narrative that is not supportive. So a narrative that's not supportive is a story that you tell yourself about how you're out of power. When you tell the story about how you're out of power, essentially, oh man, how did I start that? I had a really good, I forget where I started, but picking it up from there, like, oh, okay, how to get past certain blocks. The more you tell the story about how you don't have power, the realer that it gets. Another thing I like to point to, I saw at the beginning of this movie called Mr. Nobody, and it was this dramatic, cinematic reenactment of this pigeon in an experiment. And the narrator, oh hey Bob, and the narrator was like, the pigeon thinks that by flapping its wings it receives a treat because on one instance it did. And so the pigeon's always flapping, trying to get the treat. And that's how we are. So like something happens, we apply a narrative, and then we run with the narrative where that might not even be the thing. It might not even be the thing. So right now, let's take a deep breath and release all the things that aren't the thing. And you might have heard this in my work as well, where I'm sort of saying like, well, let's be a little silly and funny about it because we might as well. Like, seriousness, like, you know, God bless, like, this shit is serious. And at the same time, the lighter that you let it be, the more playful and imaginative you can be, the easier it is to go beyond your head into something that's new. So I had said, like, if you want to get past a block, be mindful of your story and stop fucking telling it. Like, you might need to sit with yourself and really acknowledge, like, man, that sucked. Like, I really had to work hard for that, or that really hurt, because you might continue to emphasize it because you want someone to come along and be like, wow. Like, wow. Well, honey, you might be the only person that's going to offer yourself that. So you can sit down and do it now or after this if you want, and like really like acknowledge your, you know, the worth that you've been through, and then let them go. Let them go. So if you're just joining, what I'm talking about today is peace, and I'm talking about it from a mental classification level where we can interrupt our experience from peace through these different labels, and also the use of the label, the value of the label, because there is value to the label. And so I started by saying, like, well, something is bad and good at the same time, depending on how you interact with it ultimately. And like, this idea still includes that we're just talking about you, that you're the most important thing. And it's not that you're not important, it's just that you're not the only one here. And so like the bad that might be happening for you might be good for somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we've got this classification, and in truth, you really don't know if any event is bad or good. So you can get yourself all in a tizzy about it if you want, but you need not. At the same time, it is helpful to recognize, is this bad or good for me? It is not helpful to be judgmental about that, meaning like if you find that you are doing something or receiving something that's bad and you're not able to make an immediate choice to correct it, okay, you breathe and you start to say like, well, shit, this funny, isn't this funny? And you give yourself space to see. When I'm working with clients, what we're mostly doing is just awareness work. We're expanding what is in the data bank. And when you're doing that, basically what you're allowing for is your driver, your desire to change. And I'll explain what that means in a second. But you're also making room to see like, well, maybe it's actually not willpower that prevents you from going to the gym. Maybe you don't like that space. Like maybe you like somewhere with more windows. But if your head is locked into, I'm not doing this, that's bad, I should be doing this, I'm gonna start bed, I just need to, you know what you're doing? You're blocking awareness to see what really something is. You can also do that with other people and interiorly. When you make a thing, you don't see it anymore. It's not the thing anymore, it's the thing. So, with drive and desire, what's beautiful about awareness is that seemingly, and Psycho-Cybernetics is a great book by Matthew Maltz that I must have read a jillion times. That's an exaggeration. I probably read it 4 to 7, listened to it at least. And he talks about the brain being this servile mechanism where you assign it a task and then it figures out how to do it. Like if I want to throw this marker over into my purse over there, I'm not going to sit down and do physics calculations first. I'm going to like see it, and aim. Like my body does so much to make that happen. Like think about the core muscles that have to, engage for that, and like the stabilizing muscles, and there's so much that occurs for me to do that without me thinking. And Matthew Maltz's, work basically says that that's how we work in life. And I find that to be true as well, where it's like, another example of that is Mario Kart. If I'm looking at the vehicle when I'm playing Mario Kart and I'm not looking at where the vehicle's going, I suck. I don't suck. I mean, I'm still pretty handy, but I'm not winning every race. If I instead look beyond the vehicle, where are we going? What am I driving to? What am I trying to do? Then the vehicle automatically goes that way. And so seemingly, like, it's the same with our habits. And I also call this the mama duck principle, where it's like, get the mama duck running and all the other little ducks will run up behind it. Desire is the chief mama duck. If you really want something and you let yourself believe that you can have it and trust that you can make action toward it, that will pull together a lot of your bullshit and let it go forward. And so drive also matters in that. So if you're just joining, what I'm talking about is context around decision making and how you can use expanded awareness to change your behavior. So basically, if I see, like for me, I love cake. I love icing. Oh my God. I've had so much icing in my life. Like I could look at it and tell you like if I was going to like it or not. Basically, like I love it. But you know what else I really love? Mental clarity, mental agility, mental quickness, being able to make jokes, being able to synthesize information very quickly, feeling inspired and creative. When I have a lot of sugar, I don't get to do this. Previously, it was like this decision existed in isolation. Oh, it's bad for me to have sugar. It's bad for me to have calories. War on the inside. As soon as I connected those, there's no war anymore because I love this so much that I don't need this. Like, I see this for what it is, and I can place it in small ways in my life, but it's no longer this interior battle because this is so important to me. And there's no decision you're making that's not affecting your whole self. We partition life. Going back to this idea, like we partition life, we give it categorization. Here's my work, here's my friends, here's my this, here's my that. And that's helpful in some ways, but ultimately it's all one. It's all connected. Whatever you're doing at home is somehow showing up in your work, I promise you, and vice versa. And similarly, oh, hey, welcome. And similarly, like, whatever habits you have, they're impacting all the other ones. And so if you can draw a line between the habit you want to change and the thing you really love or value, honey, it will move. Not because of discipline, but because of desire. The only discipline you need is the willingness to take in information. So for me, that looked like being very silent about when I was overeating sugar, because if I made it a thing, then I wasn't with the experience, and the experience is I can't think as fast. And the more that I let that reality take hold, the reality that was, but that I wasn't paying attention to because I was so busy berating myself, like it naturally evolved. I was like, I really don't want to do that. Like, I prefer this. And so so we started with peace, and my point today was really to talk about like peace is knowing this and also allowing yourself to acknowledge and act in this. So you're not choosing, so that basically means you let yourself know that no matter what's happening, it's neither good or bad. It's just is. And at the same time, it's helpful to recognize, like, does this feel good or not feel good? And while you can experience this while knowing this, and that's sort of my like point, that's the piece where you let yourself acknowledge, I don't feel good, and yet there's this. And yet, you can still, even though you know there's this, that doesn't preclude you from taking action to improve what's on the ground. Okay, anything else today? Yes. Nope, that's it for today. Oh, hey, girl. Thanks for coming. I'm going to post this on YouTube. There are some other videos in this series up there. I've been pushing out refurbished content. I just did a piece yesterday on reality creation that's somewhat connected to this. It does talk about this nuance on the last slide before my little promo material. I also refurbished the arguments you make, which is kind of like how you can distract yourself with problems that aren't the problem. I'm like, that's cute, right? It feels like I'm done on the energy work today. I work with clients one-to-one. I've got a number of options. I'm also open to create a package that's correct for you. So if you go to my link in my bio, there's a drop-down menu. You can also go to my website, habitbook.com/transform. I have these habit books that I build. So habit books are basically talking to that context where I was like, oh, when you see things differently, you make change. But also when you ask questions, the questions that you ask lead how you query life, what you ask of yourself and your day is what you experience. Oh my God, it's so crazy. And so you can train your mind to ask better questions so you feel better and you do better. And so I have these created habit books you can buy. And right now I'm in the mood to customize them because I got the bandwidth for it. So those are on my website as well. I also do astrologically based self-validation kits. So you can kind of see from objective sources, it's okay that's hard for you and no wonder you do that or you want that, or it's look, behold. And I've done enough of them now, over 100 and I've some of the things I've probably done close to one. I don't know. It feels like not to give an exact answer because I truly don't know, but I've been doing this since 2017 and I've done enough to know it's not generic. When we read something about ourselves, we think oh, well, everyone would think this was them. Well, no, honey, it feels like that because it's you. But there are a lot of different ones. And also I am still selling art. Not still, but continue to grow in that, which is beautiful. So if you are interested in original work for your home, or you want to get a mural, or you're looking for some prints or something smaller, let me know. I'm blessed to represent. Super pumped to represent 6, about to be 7 and 8 artists in New Orleans and beyond. And I can put together a little pitch deck for you of work that might speak to you within whatever budget you're interested in. Please share, subscribe. I really love feedback when something's helpful, so let me know. Or if there's something that you disagree with or think I could word better, I'm also interested in that. Have a beautiful day. Thanks so much for coming out, everybody.